"Your father and I have chosen two lovely girls," his mother said, adjusting the diamond bracelet around her wrist. "You will pick one to marry before the end of the month." Charles just smiled, staring out the massive window of their 20-bedroom mansion perched above the hills. Below, the city shimmered with life. But inside him, silence. He hadn't asked for wealth. He hadn't asked for control. All he wanted was something he couldn't buy: authentic love. Not love for his last name. Not love for his bank account. Love for his soul. So that night, as the family chefs prepared a dinner worth more than a village's annual income, Charles made a decision that would shock his entire bloodline. He sneaked out. No bodyguards. No watch. No phone. Just a hoodie, ripped jeans, and a decision to vanish from the billionaire world and live among the people as a nobody. But he took it one step further. He didn't just pretend to be poor. He pretended to be mentally unstable. A drifter. A joke. A burden. He wandered into a small, dusty town where no one had ever heard the name Charles Monroe. He faked a limp. Spoke in riddles. He let his beard grow wild. And he told people he was looking for the sky that fell. They laughed. They pitied him. Some even threw stones. But one girl didn't. She worked at a tea stall on the corner, barely making enough to care for her blind little brother. Her name was Lena. The first time Charles came to her, mumbling nonsense and holding a crumpled leaf like treasure, she didn't run. She smiled. "Found something beautiful today?" she asked softly. He nodded. "It's not a leaf, it's a map. To something real." She didn't mock him. She handed him a cup of tea free. And then, something happened that Charles hadn't prepared for. He started falling. Not for her kindness. Not for her beauty. But for the way she saw through his madness, like it didn't matter. What he didn't know was Lena also had a secret. A dangerous one. One that would make or break the test he thought he was in control of. Because she, too, was hiding from a life she didn't choose. And in just a few days, someone from Charles's world would come looking, bringing the two girls his mother had chosen for him. One would recognize him. The other would expose him. And Lena? She would break his heart, or save it. The tea cooled in his hands, but his heart didn't. Charles sat on a wooden crate by Lena's stall, mumbling softly to himself, not because he had to, but because he had to keep up the mask. Lena sat beside him, elbows on her knees, eyes scanning the evening crowd. "You always come at this time," she said. Same jacket. Same sad eyes. Charles turned to her. "The stars don't come out till they know someone's watching." She looked at him, really looked. "Do you even have a place to sleep?" He pointed to the sky. She chuckled. "Right. Of course. The stars." And then she did something no one had done since he began this act. She touched his arm gently, like you'd touch a wounded bird. Not with pity. Not with fear. But with quiet humanity. He froze. It had been weeks since someone touched him without caution. "You're not crazy, you know," she whispered. "You're just lost." That night, Lena gave him a blanket. And a promise. "Come back tomorrow. I saved a loaf of bread for you." He couldn't speak. Couldn't even fake a riddle. But deep inside, something cracked. Not in the mask. In the man wearing it. Back at the mansion, chaos was blooming. Charles's disappearance had hit national news. His mother cried to the press. "If anyone sees my son, my baby, please help us bring him home." And the two girls, Serena and Vanessa, beautiful, polished, media-trained future wives, were furious. Serena smirked at the cameras. "He's just playing rich boy games. He'll be back. Vanessa wasn't so sure. Unless he found someone else while pretending to be someone else. So they hired a private investigator. One known for finding anyone. Anywhere. In the small town where Lena lived, word began to spread. There's a crazy man roaming the streets. But he's different. Did you hear? He speaks English like a professor. I saw him counting coins backwards. But Lena silenced it all. Every whisper. Every laugh. Because she saw him not as a mystery, but as a mirror. And mirrors don't lie. Except Charles S. was starting to crack. Not because he was tired of pretending. Because he was starting to forget where the lie ended, and where the truth began. 3 nights later, as rain fell heavy and the wind curled like whispers around the stall, Lena found him shivering under a torn tarp. She knelt, covered him with her own jacket. You shouldn't be alone. He looked up. Eyes sharp. Voice calm. And for the first time in weeks, he dropped the madness. I don't want to be alone, he whispered. Lena froze. Wait, you. He looked away. I never was crazy. She pulled back slowly. Who are you? Before he could answer, a black car rolled into town. Vanessa stepped out in red heels. Serena followed in a coat worth more than the village. And behind them, the investigator. With photos. With proof. Lena was about to discover that the man she had fed, protected, and almost trusted, was the heir to billions. And Charles was about to learn. Lena's secret would make him question everything he believed about love, poverty, and trust. Because she, too, was not who he thought. And the shocking secret had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with her. You're not crazy, you lied to me. Charles stood, water dripping from his hair, the blanket she gave him falling to the ground like a discarded truth. I had to, he said, voice breaking. I had to know who would love me when I had nothing. Who would look at me and not see a wallet, but a man. She looked away. Her hands clenched. So I was just part of your test. He stepped forward. No. Not anymore. At first, yes. But then I started coming for the tea, for the talks, for you. The real you. You mean the me you never told the truth to, she snapped. A car door slammed behind them. Vanessa's heels clicked toward them like bullets on stone. Serena followed, arms crossed, disgust dancing on her lips. Well, Vanessa said, smirking, so this is the great love experiment. Serena added, she smells like boiled leaves and firewood. Perfect for a prince, don't you think? Lena stood tall. You can insult me, she said softly. But don't pretend you're here for him. You're here for the Empire. Charles turned to the girls, fire in his chest. I walked away from all of it, he said. Because none of you saw me. You saw a throne. He turned to Lena again. I saw you before you saw me. That night you gave me tea without asking for anything. That's when I realized. I didn't want a crown. I wanted a connection. Lena's eyes were glassed over now. Not from the rain. From memory. Because she was fighting the truth inside her too. And then, she broke. I have a secret too, she whispered. Since you want honesty. Charles leaned forward. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Serena scoffed. But Lena didn't flinch. My real name is not Lena. Charles blinked. I ran away too. From a life I didn't choose. From a marriage contract I never signed. From a father who promised me to a man 3 times my age to pay off his debts. She stared at Charles now, eyes ablaze. I changed my name. Started over here. Selling tea. Watching the world walk past, pretending I didn't care. But I did. I cared too much. Charles's breath caught. You were hiding, just like me. Not hiding, she corrected. Surviving. Another silence fell. Only this time, the air between them wasn't filled with shame. It was filled with truth. Vanessa scoffed and grabbed Serena's hand. This is ridiculous. He wants a runaway tea girl over legacy. Charles turned to them with the calm of a king. Yes. Serena scoffed. You're ruining your name for this. He looked back at Lena. No. I'm saving it. The investigators stepped forward now, uncertain. Sir, your mother demands you return. The press. Charles raised a hand. The man fell silent. I'll go back, Charles said. But not alone. Lena looked up. He reached out his hand, soaked, shaking slightly. I came here pretending to be a madman. But I found clarity in the madness. I found you. Lena didn't move. Then slowly, silently, she stepped forward and took his hand. No words. Just a moment. Just eyes locked through the storm. Vanessa and Serena stood speechless, out of place for the first time in their perfectly curated lives. Because the richest man in the country had just chosen a tea girl with a past. Over two women with a future. And as the rain poured harder, it washed away more than the dirt and lies. It washed away the gap between masks. Between madness and genius. Between wealth and worth. Between pretending and truly living. The engine hummed softly as the black car rolled away from the muddy village road. Inside, Charles sat beside Lena, both wrapped in silence, but this time, it wasn't the silence of strangers. It was the kind of quiet two people share after surviving a storm together. She clutched the sleeves of her borrowed jacket, unsure of how to breathe in this new reality. He kept glancing at her, memorizing the shape of her fingers, the curve of her jaw, afraid that once they reached the mansion, the real world would pull them apart. Behind them, Serena stared out the window, her jaw clenched. Vanessa scrolled through her phone. They're already calling him the Mad Prince. She didn't even try to whisper. Lena looked at Charles, unsure if he heard. He had. He didn't flinch. At the mansion gate, cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters shouted questions. Mr. Monroe. Where have you been? Is it true you were mentally unwell? Who is the girl with you? A nurse? A villager? Charles stepped out of the car slowly, holding Lena's hand firmly. They walked past the reporters like ghosts through a crowd, silent, certain. Inside, his mother waited. Elegant. Cold. A diamond necklace clinging to her neck like pride. You humiliated this family, she said without greeting. Running off like a madman, holding hands with a street girl. Charles stood still. I found peace in madness. And I found something priceless you've never given me. Her eyes narrowed. And what is that? Freedom. And love that costs nothing. She laughed bitterly. You think love can keep a legacy alive? Lena stepped forward, voice steady. No. But it can give it meaning. The room fell quiet. The butlers froze. Even Serena looked up. The mother turned her gaze toward Lena slowly. You speak well. I speak from experience, Lena replied. I know what it means to be bought and sold. Charles's mother tilted her head. You have secrets, don't you? Yes, Lena answered. And I'm not ashamed of surviving them. The mother studied her for a long moment, then turned to Charles. You want to crown this girl queen of our name? I want to crown her queen of my heart, he said. The name can follow if it wants to. The words hung like thunder. Vanessa laughed. Serena rolled her eyes. But no one else spoke. Finally, his mother sighed and sat down. "You remind me of your father," she said. "A fool who believed in emotions." Charles smiled. "And you loved him for it." For the first time, her eyes softened just for a flicker. "I'll allow her to stay," she said flatly. "But don't expect me to toast the wedding." "I don't need a toast," Charles said. "I just need her." Later that night, Charles found Lena on the balcony, staring at the stars. "They still look the same," she said. "They saw us through everything," he answered. She turned. "Are you sure about this?" "I have nothing." He stepped closer. "You have everything. Dignity. Fire. Truth. That's more than I was born with." She smiled faintly. "I'm not perfect," she whispered. "Neither am I," he said, brushing her hair behind her ear. "But we're real." And then he kissed her, not as a prince, not as a madman, but as a man who had finally found something that couldn't be bought, earned, or faked. Love. Chosen. Tested. And true. 1 year later. The tea stall was gone. In its place stood a small cafe on the edge of the city, Lena's Leaf. Rustic wood, warm lights, and handwritten menus that still smelled of fresh ginger and memory. A quiet place where billionaires didn't matter, but stories did. Lena stood behind the counter, wiping glasses. Her hair was tied loosely, her ring finger held a delicate gold band, and her eyes, still wild with truth, watched the door like she was always waiting for one more miracle to walk in. And at 5:03 p.m., just like clockwork, Charles walked in. No guards. No suit. Just a smile that only belonged to her. He kissed her cheek across the counter. "CEO meeting survived," he whispered. She poured him tea. "Anything explode?" "Only my patience," he smirked. "Board still wants me to take Serena back as PR partner." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess, they think I still weaken the brand." He sipped the tea. "They'll get over it. Or they can leave." A bell rang. A delivery boy entered with a sealed white envelope. No return address. Charles opened it. Inside, no words. Just a photo. Lena. Alone. Walking down an alley. He stared. Heart slowing. This was taken yesterday. Lena took the photo. Who would? Before she could finish, a second photo fell from the envelope. This one wasn't of her. It was of Charles. Asleep in their bedroom. A red circle drawn around his head. Lena's hands went cold. Charles stood, voice low now. "Get your coat. We're not sleeping here tonight." He pulled her close. "Someone knows everything." And that's when she whispered something he hadn't heard since the village. "I think it's him." Charles turned. "Who?" Lena's voice cracked. "The man I was promised to, before I ran." Charles froze. "You said he was gone." "I never said he was dead." Outside, the wind shifted. In a dark car parked across the cafe, a man lit a cigarette, eyes locked on the door. He smiled as Charles pulled Lena out under his arm. He hadn't waited a year to be forgotten. He waited a year, to strike when they finally had something to lose. The city felt colder that night. Charles gripped Lena's hand tightly as they stepped into the underground parking lot beneath his secondary apartment. No bodyguards. No press. Just the echo of their footsteps and the pounding of his heart. He kept looking over his shoulder. She kept hearing a whisper that wasn't there. "I should have told you," Lena said as the elevator closed behind them. "His name is Damien." Charles turned sharply. "Damien? That's the man who..." "Yes. My father promised me to him when I was barely 18. He ran a lone empire in the shadows. I was part of the payment. Charles's fists clenched. And you think he's the one sending these photos? I know it. She pulled out an old phone from her bag hidden, taped behind her books. Cracked screen. No SIM. But it held one message, never opened. From over a year ago. You can run. But the day he loves you, is the day I'll return to take what's mine. Charles stared at the message like it was poison. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want your life to be touched by mine. He stepped forward. But my life is yours now. If he's coming for you, then he's coming through me. Suddenly, the lights in the hallway flickered. Then shut off. Total darkness. Lena gasped. A voice echoed faintly from the shadows. Calm. Cruel. Confident. Nice apartment. Bit small for a billionaire, isn't it? Charles pulled Lena behind him. Damien, he shouted into the darkness. Face me. A single overhead bulb blinked back on. And there he was. Tall. Dark suit. No fear. No smile. Damien stepped forward slowly, like a man who already owned the room. I gave you a year, he said to Lena. A full year. That was generous. She trembled. You don't own me. He smirked. No. But I owned the man who did. Your father. And he signed a contract written in blood, not ink. Charles stepped forward. Then try breaking me like you broke him. Damien's eyes turned to Charles now. Cold. Calculating. You think love changes rules? You think marriage protects her? Love is just a dress. Ideal in skeletons. From his coat, he tossed a small flash drive onto the floor. Go ahead. Watch it. Her past. Your future. Everything you thought you knew about the girl you kissed in the rain. Lena's knees buckled. Charles caught her. Damien walked away, leaving behind a silence more dangerous than his threats. In the apartment, Charles locked every door. Every window. Then plugged the flash drive into his laptop. Lena begged him not to. But Charles looked at her softly. I don't care what's on it. I care that you stayed. I care that you chose me when I was nothing. He clicked play. And on the screen, a video loaded. Not of Lena. Of her father. Sitting across from Damien. Pale. Defeated. I'm sorry, her father whispered. She doesn't know. Please, don't hurt her. I'll give you everything. Damien's voice echoed back, I don't want everything. I want her. The screen went black. Lena was crying now. I'm sorry, she said. I should have burned that past before it reached you. But Charles pulled her in. No, he said. We face it together. All of it. Even the monsters. Outside, Damien watched from the shadows of a nearby rooftop. His smile widened. Because he wasn't after her heart. He was after Charles's legacy. And to break a billionaire, you start by twisting what he loves most. The next morning came without sunlight. And with them came a dread neither Charles nor Lena could shake. He hadn't slept. He sat at the kitchen counter, staring at the untouched laptop. Lena paced quietly, her hands twisting in knots, her mind louder than words. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. One message. One line. One game. You built a life on lies. Now I'll teach you how fast it crumbles. Attached was a photo. His company's main server room. In flames. Charles dropped the phone. He burned our data center. Lena ran to him. What? My company's backbone. Years of client info, security, backups, gone. She placed her hands on his chest, steadying him. We can fix it. But Charles was already on the phone. Get the board in an emergency session. Now. As he threw on a coat, his assistant called. Sir, there's more. Someone leaked your psychiatric evaluations from last year. He froze. The ones he faked. To sell the madness. Lena's eyes met his. He's using your own lie against you. Yes, Charles said bitterly. He's trying to erase my credibility. Across the city, Damien was already 3 steps ahead. He sat in a sleek office hidden beneath a derelict boxing gym. Screens on every wall. Financial charts. Social media feeds. Live security footage of Charles' properties. The war had begun. Beside him sat a woman. Blonde. Sharp. Familiar. Serena. She placed a file on his desk. These are the signatures Charles forged to escape board duties last year. You leak this, and they'll force him out. Damien smirked. You see. You weren't discarded. Just reproposed. She smiled coldly. I want him to pay. You want her. Let's both win. Back at the emergency boardroom, Charles stood at the end of the table, bloodshot eyes, coffee in hand, heart in defense mode. We were attacked, he said. This isn't just data loss. This is sabotage. It's personal. The chairman adjusted his glasses. And what proof do you have that this isn't paranoia? Another board member slid a printed tweet across the table. #MadPrince trending worldwide. Would you trust your investments with a man who pretended to be insane? Charles' breath caught. They were doubting him. All of them. Lena burst through the door without warning. I have proof, she said, voice clear and brave. He's being targeted by a man named Damien. I know because I was promised to him. And Charles protected me. One woman scoffed. And who are you? His wife. Or his actress? Lena didn't blink. I'm his truth, she said. Charles stepped beside her. She has more honor than anyone in this room. But the damage was done. The board suspended him for 30 days. Powerless. Stripped. Outside the building, he stood on the steps, gripping the railing. This is what Damien wants, he muttered. To break me from inside out. Lena touched his cheek. Then let's stop reacting. He turned to her. And start hunting. Later that night, as the city slept, Charles and Lena entered a world Charles never thought he'd return to the dark edge of power. Underground favors. Silent allies. Men who owed him. Hackers. Journalists. Fighters in tailored suits. If Damien wanted war, he'd get one. Because Charles had been pretending to be mad before. But now, he was awake. Charles wasn't the same man who had once faked madness to find love. Now, he was a man sharpened by betrayal. Focused. Dangerous. Strategic. In the underground parking of an abandoned media building, Lena met him beside a matte black SUV. She wore a black hoodie, hair tied up. Eyes clear. No fear. You ready for this? She asked. Charles looked up from his laptop, eyes glowing under the dashboard light. Damien used the media to attack my mind. Now I use it to expose his. A file named promiseinblood_d.mp4 loaded on screen. In it, Damien sat in a dim-lit room with Lena's father, a contract on the table. I don't care how old she is, Damien whispered. She will be mine. Or I take everything from your bloodline. Lena stared at the screen, Her fists clenched so tight her knuckles turned white. "I was just property to him," she said. Charles touched her shoulder. "Not anymore. Tonight, we burn his empire down." They drove into the night. 12:17 a.m. Private Broadcast Network Tower. The city slept as the untraceable satellite signal went live. A hacker named Reef, once arrested by Charles' company but later freed by Charles' quiet help, now stood beside them, fingers flying over keys. "You sure you want the world to see this?" Reef asked. Charles nodded. "I'd rather be hated for the truth than respected for a lie." Reef hit enter. Screens across the city flickered. Billboards changed. TVs interrupted live broadcasts. Phone notifications buzzed. Breaking, billionaire speaks out the truth they tried to bury. The video began. Charles appeared on screen. Clean. Direct. Eyes locked on the world. "A year ago, I faked madness to test the love I was being offered. And I found the only person who saw me, not my money, not my title, me. Her name is Lena. But behind our love was a man named Damien. He destroyed data, attacked my company, and used threats to control lives. This is what he said to her father." The video played. Damien's voice. The contract. The blood. The silence that followed in living rooms, offices, cafes was deafening. Then Reef cut the feed. It had played long enough. Lena turned to Charles. "What happens now?" He looked toward the tower's rooftop. Sirens already wailing in the distance. Now, Damien has nowhere left to hide. Across town, Damien stood in his penthouse, surrounded by broken glass. He'd thrown his whiskey. His phone buzzed non-stop. Investors pulling out. Banks freezing accounts. Board members resigning. And Serena? Gone. She'd vanished the moment she realized Charles wasn't just smart. He was 10 moves ahead. But Damien wasn't finished. He stood quietly. Then smiled. "They want a war," he whispered. "Now it gets personal." He walked into a private vault. Opened a drawer. Inside was a photo. Lena. As a child. And behind her, her brother. He circled the face with a pen. And whispered, "If I can't have her, maybe I take the only family she has left." The storm had shifted. No longer a quiet war of contracts and whispers, now it had teeth. Charles's phone rang. A private line. Unknown number. He answered. No voice. Just breathing. Then, a child's voice. "Lena." Charles froze. "Who is this?" he barked. Then Damien spoke. Soft. Calm. Chilling. Beautiful little boy. Looks just like her. He doesn't talk much, does he? Maybe because he can't see the monsters coming. Charles's hands tightened around the phone. "If you touch him, relax. He's having juice. And a story. I told him about a man who stole something precious from me. And now, I'm teaching him about consequences." Click. Charles dropped the phone. Lena had already turned around, her hand to her mouth. She had heard her brother's voice. Her knees gave way. She fell to the floor. "He has him," she whispered. "He has Eli." Charles pulled her close, holding her as she shook. "We'll get him back. I swear." But Lena pulled back, eyes blazing. "No. I will." 4:29 a.m. Damien's private estate, outskirts of the city. A fortress hidden behind electronic gates and silence. Cameras. Dogs. Guards trained not to ask questions, just act. Inside, Damien stood in a room lined with monitors. On the largest screen, a live feed of little Eli, sitting quietly in a soft chair, listening to music through headphones. Unaware. Untouched. Damien sipped his drink, watching the boy. He wasn't hurting him. Yet. But pain wasn't always physical. Control could be slower. Colder. He turned to his assistant. When they come and they will make sure the cameras are rolling. I want the world to see the Prince of Fake Madness on his knees. 5:12 a.m. Rooftop. Lena. Charles. Reef. The air was sharp. Time was against them. Charles loaded a blueprint of Damien's estate on a tablet. We have one shot. We enter through the service road near the east wall. Reef hacks the cameras for a 7-minute blackout. I'll handle the guards. You find your brother. Lena looked him dead in the eyes. I'm going in first. He didn't argue. Not tonight. Because she wasn't just a woman in love anymore. She was a sister. And sisters are fire. 6 a.m. The break-in. The sky was still dark. A gate short-circuited. Lena slipped through the shadows like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. Inside, Charles moved fast and silent, disabling 2 guards with tranquilizers. Reef's voice echoed in their earpieces. 5 minutes until cameras go back up. In the inner corridor, Lena reached the room. She opened it. And froze. Eli looked up. Eyes wide. Sister. She ran. Fell to her knees. Pulled him into her arms. Shush, shush. I'm here. I got you. But just as she turned to leave, the lights came on. The door slammed shut. And Damien stepped in, clapping slowly. Touching. Really? He's adorable. Charles burst in behind her just seconds too late. Guards closed in. Tranquilizers aimed at him now. But Charles didn't back down. You want me, he growled. Take me. Let them go. Damien tilted his head. Oh no, Charles. You still don't get it. This was never about them. It was about breaking you. Slowly. Publicly. Piece by piece. Eli clung to Lena. And Damien smiled. So tonight, you choose. Walk away with the boy. Or stay, and protect the girl. A cruel ultimatum. One child. One woman. Only one door out. Cameras on. The world watching. And Charles Monroe had to decide. Who do you save when you love both?